Hello friends, thanks for tuning in to another informative weekend edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Theodore Henry. In today's show, we'll see what help is there for children with learning disabilities, plus efforts to protect and preserve biodiversity and more. Sit back and relax for these and more interesting features right after this important message.
It's absolutely critical that we receive the vaccines. You will see hospitalizations and indeed deaths likely come down. And so there is a lot of value to be gained by getting as many vulnerables on board as possible. So tell your mothers, tell your aunts, listen out for yourselves if you're over 60, and take the vax, because the vax is what will help you to guard against the COVID virus and indeed help your relatives, your friends, those who you come in contact with for the same benefit.
Children who have become disabled by a type of muscle stiffness known as spasticity are able to receive treatment that may restore normality or significantly improve their quality of life. Follow us now on this next journey to explore the life-changing possibilities.
A mother or father's wish for his or her child: that he or she is happy, healthy, able, and will achieve his or her full potential. Even in the face of disabilities, these aspirations are affirmed with extra care and the outpouring of love in support of children with special needs. And the children themselves, some not able to freely move due to a condition known as spasticity, have strong faith in their abilities. Spasticity, or muscle toning, is a type of muscle stiffness seen in children with neurological conditions such as cerebral palsy.
Cerebral palsy is a name that describes a group of conditions where there's injury to the brain, the developing brain, that occurs during pregnancy, in utero, at the time of delivery, or up until 3 years old. And it affects a part of the brain that controls movement, the motor section.
With the varying degrees of cerebral palsy, some children may have issues with comprehension or understanding. Others have seizures and problems talking, swallowing, hearing, or seeing. Despite the struggles, the possibilities are bright for children living in Jamaica with this and other conditions that affect the ability to walk. Medical interventions are now allowing some disabled children to walk for the first time and for others to walk better, ultimately having an improved quality of life.
I think what we have brought is a comprehensive approach to addressing the problem, where all the medical professionals, including nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, the surgeons, the rehabilitation and specialists and physiatrists, and the neurosurgeons and neurologists have come together, working with the hospital, working with the pharmacists to try and solve the problems of each child individually. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So for example, in my specialties, some of them may need a surgical procedure on the lower back, which we call a dorsal rhizotomy, where we will resect some of the nerve or divide some of the nerves to allow them to move the legs more freely.
Other options for treatment include injecting the muscles or around the nerves with medication that decrease muscle tone or muscle stiffness. These medications include phenol or botulinum toxin type A, Botox. Specialist teams at the Bustamante Hospital for Children and the University Hospital of the West Indies, along with partners from overseas, have been pioneering treatments for these children.
The children are assessed. They're assessed by the physiatrists, they're assessed by the physiotherapists, and a diagnosis is made, and then a particular treatment is prescribed that's tailor-made for that child's disability.
Assistive aids such as braces, walkers, and other orthotic devices provide important support to children dealing with spasticity and the pain or discomfort it causes.
It's important for children with movement problems to be positioned properly. Without good positioning, the stiffness can pull the joints out of alignment. And so when they're very early, we put them in what we call braces or orthotics. And these orthotics will maintain a proper alignment of the joint, preventing the ankles from being deformed, preventing the fingers from being deformed.
The braces help with standing, balance, and overall mobility.
If you start from toe upwards, you have what we call ankle-foot orthosis. AFO is the quick acronym. You have orthosis or braces that includes the knee, ankle-foot orthosis that allows for stability. You have some that we use at the hip to keep the hip apart. We use some at the elbows as well, or the wrists, so wrist orthosis. Some patients may require spine orthosis. Those are not usually used in the neuromuscular children, meaning the children with cerebral palsy and weakness. And if they are able to stand and balance, they get walkers to ambulate or wheelchairs so the parents and caregivers can carry them around comfortably.
There are several risk factors for cerebral palsy.
The risk factors include poor antenatal care. It also includes children that are born very young, premature delivery, less than 28 weeks, because the brain is very delicate, and any changes in oxygenation can affect the brain. Low birth weight as well, when children are born very low. Different types of infections can cause it.
And even after delivery, there's the risk from head injury and infections such as meningitis and jaundice, among other things. Doctors say the risk of developing cerebral palsy can be minimized.
Parents need to know that you must have proper antenatal care, proper enough to take the pregnancy to full term, to 40 weeks, so the child's brain and body and blood vessels can develop properly. In addition to that, good health care condition for the mother, and delivery, safe delivery is always important, and postnatally, meaning after they're delivered, is to ensure that the children are healthy, they get their vaccinations, they're not exposed to any infection, there's no trauma to the brain, environment is safe, so you don't have exposure to chemicals that can also cause it, or to accidents or near drowning and stuff like that.
Children's exposure to toxic chemicals such as paints with lead in them, herbicides, pesticides, or household chemicals with pungent odors, either ingested or inhaled, can cause brain damage and must be avoided. Our best option for good health is always prevention, but that aside, effective curative measures offer hope and great joy.
We do have children walking who weren't able to walk before. We do have children sitting who couldn't sit before. I had a patient once where the legs were crossed, scissored we call it, where the legs were scissored at the hips, and the mother wasn't able to clean her properly or carry her. So when she used to carry her in the front. So we injected between the legs, and she came back. She was very happy. I'm like, why are you so happy? She's like, me can lap her now. I said, what do you mean by that? Because we injected between the legs, she could open the legs, so she could now carry her on the side, one foot in the front, one in the back, and a bag.
We hear of another story from Aunt Avia, who cares for her nephew Emilio.
His name is Emilio Morris. He's 12 years old. At one point, his foot was like turning like this. So now the car seat at the Bustamante, he said come back around straight. So now he's wearing a braces. At one point he used to creep, but now he doesn't creep. At one point his knee was very tight, but now it's not so tight. Things kind of better now, being that him get the injection. He used to get fizzy. They want him to stand up in the brace.
Kenil Baker is 13 years old. He was born with cerebral palsy, low motor skills. Basically, he cannot walk without assistance.
We have been coming to this clinic for some time now, where he has gotten injections and has done a surgery, which has helped him tremendously. He could not lay on his stomach. After the surgery, he was able to lay on his stomach and turn over, roll over. He's able to stretch out his hands and legs. And for bathing him, it has been made much easier for caring for him. He could not feed himself. He's trying to feed himself now. Well, you can leave him with food and he will feed himself. He's a very happy child. And we have good support from family and friends. And thank God we do. He's our joy. He's our joy.
The notion that every child can learn and every child must should be fixed in the minds of us all. Never forget also that this is equally true for children with learning disabilities. Let's review one avenue through which professional assistance is being provided to help these children realize their potential.
The Jamaica University College Child Assessment and Research in Education Center, a feat made possible by several major players, with renowned educator Professor Errol Miller leading the team, opened its doors in 1981 and over the years has grown to become the first point of contact in the diagnosis, evaluation and treatment of children with special needs in Jamaica.
In 1975, the Ministry of Education mandated Jamaica College to educate and train teachers for special education. An advisory committee was set up by the college. The committee recommended that Jamaica establish a diagnostic and therapeutic center capable of diagnosing the learning problems of children with multiple disabilities and develop instructional prescriptions for teachers and parents. As psychologists, education specialists, and therapists began to provide services to students, they had to use tests from overseas. Many were not appropriate in content. The assessment of reading posed the greatest challenge. Reading is common to all areas. Students needed the test to be tested individually. The content of reading tests had to reflect the physical and social environments, as well as the lived experience of children.
First published in 1995, the Microdiagnostic Reading Test is an instrument for teachers, diagnosticians, or professionals designed to assess the reading skills of children. Assessment results from this instrument is further used to design educational plans to meet the individual learning needs of the child.
As societies change, more is learned from research and experience gained from practice. Instruments have to be updated, upgraded, and refined. Hence, the Microdiagnostic Reading Test of 2018.
So it's been a number of years since the first edition has been out. So this new version is an updated version in terms of the passages, in terms of the grade range that it covers, and in terms of the subtests that are involved. We're looking at a number of different aspects of reading. We're looking at a child's ability to distinguish sound in the words that they hear. We're looking at their decoding ability, their knowledge of sight words, reading fluency, and their understanding of what they're reading. One of the benefits of this new version, because we're looking at a number of different areas of reading, is that we can be much more targeted in the recommendations that we're creating for teachers and parents. So instead of just saying a child has a reading deficit, we can say maybe they need to learn more sight words, maybe they need to learn, pick up their fluency, maybe they need to target comprehension. So we can focus on the specific area of reading that they're having difficulty with instead of just saying they have a reading concern.
It's administered individually. There are 3 components. There's a sight word, non-words, and reading comprehension. It takes about roughly an hour to an hour and a half, depending on the level at which the child is at. It varies because most of the children already come with reading problems. They are also aware that they have reading problems. So some are nervous, some have anxiety issues. So it's where I come into play, where I have to do some form of encouragement, let them know that the reason why they're doing this test, for me to know their strengths and their weaknesses so that I can help them moving forward. So after the test is completed, I go through and I score. So the test will now tell me the level at which the child is reading. So that also lets me prepare work packets, activities, worksheets, etc. for their level, for their specific reading need.
It helped me to read and tell story and answer a lot of questions.
The MDRT is currently used in a number of countries across the region. It's used in a number of classrooms. We have a number of teachers who come through to be trained on it so that they can pick up the reading challenges that they have in the classroom. So we expect that this new version will all similarly be used across the region.
The new Microdiagnostic Reading Test 2nd edition is now available. Contact the Microcare Center to register for one of our workshops at 876-929-772022 or by email at care_center@cwjamaica.com.
On our roads, remember, take time, be courteous, drive good, walk good. Part of keeping our roads safe is ensuring the vehicles we drive are mechanically safe, meeting all roadworthy requirements. And besides that, we must be good drivers and avoid risk-taking and sensation-seeking behaviors which are prone to causing road crashes.
Jamaica has made significant strides in the use of geographic information systems as a function of our day-to-day life. The state has been making use of this technology to support governance and development. Keep watching to learn more.
It's all around us. It influences how we work, learn, live, play, and plan for the future. GIS is the short form of Geographic Information System. It's a computer-based system built to capture, store, manipulate, analyze, manage, and display all kinds of spatial or geographical data.
In geography class in high school, persons were taught that in geography, we're able to locate where features are using coordinates. That's the basis of GIS. Knowing where these features are on the Earth's surface and being able to represent that within a computer-based environment where that is seen visually.
So it's a support tool that we use to provide additional extension to any business process.
And with this GIS technology, the government has been mapping Jamaica's course on the information highway. Leading that charge is the Land Information Council of Jamaica, LICJ, a mandate held since 1992.
Jamaica is considered the leading country within the English-speaking Caribbean with regards to GIS. We're able to provide direction, policy development.
In addition to coordinating the implementation of a national land information policy strategy, the LICJ has also been instrumental in developing a national GIS network. And with the foundation set, the Council is now focused on establishing and implementing a National Spatial Data Infrastructure, NSDI. Through that infrastructure, government will be able to capture, manage, maintain, integrate, discover, and distribute spatial data at all levels of society. The LICJ's mandate is executed through its secretariat, the National Spatial Data Management Division, NSDMD.
We provide a lot of technical support to all of these various government agencies that actively use GIS to carry out their mandate. We train these persons. Apart from that, we facilitate conducting GIS needs assessments.
Government is currently the largest user of geospatial and related technologies, and that usage runs throughout government. It's seen in the water sector, transport, disaster management, environment management, national security, education, health, and agriculture. But no other area has seen the proliferation of GIS technology than that of land use and development. At the Urban Development Corporation, GIS is used to streamline operations in various departments, including estate management, business development, architecture, and corporate security.
We are on the road now to our 50th anniversary, and we see GIS as being that enabling tool to provide UDC now with not just the way to make better decisions in development, but also improving UDC's image as a modern entity.
The same is true for the National Land Agency's land titling, land valuation, surveys and mapping, and estate management divisions.
A lot of the business processes that exist within the different divisions have GIS tied into it. So for example, there is no way that somebody can, at present, acquire a new certificate of title without some work happening on the GIS end.
The National Works Agency also uses GIS in project planning, land acquisition, and location analysis.
Everything that we do has a spatial component to it, and it's hard to deny that GIS is going to play a role in all of that.
Cost savings, greater efficiency, faster decision making, improved communication and better record keeping are all derived from the use of GIS. And the private sector also has been getting in on the technology. Increasing GIS nationwide is also a focus for the LICJ and the NSDMD. To facilitate this, the government has signed an enterprise license agreement with the Environmental Research Institute. That agreement has been a game changer.
It has allowed us to be more efficient, in terms of accessing the data and using it to provide more information and to engage also with the public as well.
What it does is open up a whole new world. So there are almost no limits to what we can do with GIS and improving the way we handle our spatial data as a government.
Public awareness has also been heightened with the GIS Day during Geography Awareness in November. That observation has been staged annually since 2003. In 2017, with the LICJ celebrating 25 years groundbreaking work, there will be a 2-day GIS user conference in October. The conference will focus on national security for sustainable development under the theme Geospatial Technologies, Mapping Our Way to Secure Communities. As we strive to learn more about each other and the world around us, there is no doubt that GIS is the most practical and beneficial tool in this process. As Jack Dangamond, co-founder of the Environmental Systems Research Institute, said, GIS is waking up the world to the power of geography, the science of integration, and has the framework for creating a better future. We invite you to learn more about the GIS User Conference by visiting the webpage at gisuserconferenceja.com.
The protection and preservation of the country's biodiversity, that is our plants and our animal species, is important to sustainable development. The National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, is leading the charge to protect life in the wild. Let's take a look.
There are increasing threats to Jamaica's biological resources, like our plants or animals, due to events like habitat degradation or pollution. And globally, cycles like animal poaching to fuel a thriving fashion industry continues to hover over the idea of sustainable life in the wild. While Jamaica and the rest of the world's ecological challenges of today need innovative solutions, understanding our wildlife, what to protect, the need to protect it, and those mobilized to protect it is one of the biggest starts.
The overall goal for wildlife conservation is really to try and preserve a particular species in its natural environment. So the species that are protected, how do we determine those? Well, Jamaica, again, as an island, has a lot of unique species. So that's one of the first things we look at. What are the things that are unique to Jamaica? What are the things that are endemic? So we're looking at endemic species, not just animals, but also plants. And we are trying to see how we can ensure that we don't lose those species. There are also species whose numbers are very small. They're not necessarily endemic. Some of them are more widespread, but their species in Jamaica are very small, and they may have a higher threat of exploitation, for example. Persons are going to try and harvest them, and so we try to put some form of control onto the amount of harvest that is done. So in order to do that, we have to bring those species under the Wildlife Protection Act so we can better regulate these activities.
So how do we necessarily choose which animals fall under the country's Wildlife Protection Act?
Now, how do we choose these? Well, we look at what is native, what is endemic, and then we actually do surveys. We look at what the population numbers are like. We also signatory to several international treaties that actually tell us that certain species that we have on our island are actually endangered, critically endangered on a global scale. And so we have to play our part here in Jamaica to ensure that those species are not lost.
And then there is the issue of domesticated animals, those that are dependent on humans, because over time they have become genetically adopted to live alongside us. But more and more persons are stepping into the wild for new breeds to domesticate. But disturbing that pattern can have implications.
Domesticated animals are really animals that are very dependent on man and very used to habitualize to man. And so we talk about cats and dogs, some pigeons, for example, your rock pigeons, your everyday domestic pigeons. Those are domestic animals. Now, some of our wildlife persons would like to keep as pet. They are not domesticated animals. They are actually wild animals. Our parrots, for example, we have two endemic species of parrot, the yellow-billed parrot and the black-billed parrot, and persons would tend to want to keep those as pet. And they are actually protected because their population is low. First off, they're endemic. Their population is very low, and their population is also declining. And so we're trying to protect those species.
From around August to somewhere in September, our bird shooting season is a welcome activity. But even these licensed activities, the National Environment and Planning Agency NEPA is regulating how we protect our endemic species in the wild.
We have hunting season, that is something that is actually regulated. NEPA also declares what are known as game reserves. And game reserves are areas where we do not want any hunting activity to occur. Because annually we have annual game bird hunting season, and so we have game reserves to protect populations, especially breeding populations of these birds, so that they are not overexploited. So game reserves are areas where no one is allowed to hunt, and we actually created the law in such a way that all forest reserves that are managed by Forestry Department are actually, in effect, game reserves as well. So in that sense, NEPA does have a role in forest reserves in ensuring that no hunting occurs within forest reserves.
So, next time you roam a rugged landscape or pass by the carpet of plants lining the roadways, the thick tangles of bushes, or observe the colony of birds or seemingly baleful mongoose, let's observe without disturbing those patterns of life.
This is where we end another wonderful journey through the pages of Jamaica Magazine. We value your company, so be sure to join us again tomorrow for another show. Until then, continue to watch these and other programs by logging on to our website. That's at jis.gov.jm or subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on all the major social media platforms and through our mobile app that's both Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Theodore Henry, reminding you to follow the COVID-19 protocols and stay safe.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.